Alexis, I think we should go ahead and get rolling. So again, good morning. My name is Rebecca Wayland. I am obviously one of Trident's webinar hosts today, and I'm joined by the fantastic Alexis Romero, and she's going to talk to you all today about how to make engagements really fulfilling and how to build these relationships that work at industry events. So I don't want to steal her thunder. Alexis, if you can present.
I can. I thought I was.
I see our lovely faces, and now we see our lovely deck. So thank you. So yeah,
There?
Alexis, yes, we're all good. So the Focus and Contract Success webinar is maximizing your return on investment at events, because obviously in the government contracting realm, you're going to go to lunches, you're going to go to trade shows, you're going to go to industry days, and all of these present opportunities to create meaningful engagements with potential teammates and customers. So diving in, we both have the ability to advance slides as
you navigate now.
Yeah, sorry. So this is for the part that I'm telling you about Trident here. A lot of proposal management firms out there, right? But the things that really make Trident different are the fact that we are a small service-disabled, veteran-owned small business headquartered in Southern California, but we have staff that are literally worldwide. And one of the reasons you'll see underneath our commitment is because we are committed to creating flexible and portable job opportunities for drilling reservists, veterans, and spouses of active duty military all over the world. I'm a Navy veteran. I'm a Navy spouse right now. I said that like it wasn't gonna last. I am a Navy spouse. Yeah, we'll remove the question mark from that. And I've been on the Trident team for about 9 years. So I'm really excited to be here today and talking to you about things that align with our core focus, which is helping government contractors identify, position for, and win government contracts with our professional staff who deliver quality service. I'm not going to dive into our core values because I could talk about those all day long. They really get me excited. But basically, the difference in working with Trident is that we expect all of our staff to exhibit certain core values, including military level professionalism, a great sense of teamwork, accountability and responsibility. We center around delivering value to our customers, and we definitely embrace work-life balance. So that's a little bit about Trident. Now I'm going to introduce, this is the most exciting part. I'm going to introduce Alexis Romero. She is fantastic. If you've ever worked with her on a research project or a proposal submission, you already know this, but she's amazing. She brings 25 years of professional experience. 10 years of that has been spent in our little niche of business development, specifically for federal government contracting. And she self-describes the favorite part of her job is helping companies tell their story in a way that resonates with the audience and builds valuable business partnerships, which means she's the 100% right person to be giving the training today. This is in her strike zone. It's something she's passionate about and good at. So you guys are in for a really great webinar. And we haven't even touched on her educational credentials, which are impressive. So with that, Alexis, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you for the meat and potatoes of today's conversation that I'm very excited about.
Me too.
I'm going to stop touching the slides too. So.
All right, I'm taking over. So here we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for attending this webinar on contract success. We're talking about how to maximize the ROI of event attendance. And so I'm going to jump into a little bit about the purpose of the webinar, right? Why are we talking about events? Well, in my experience, those 10 years of experience doing support as a BD consultant in the federal contracting space, I have heard a lot of clients and a lot of colleagues say that events are a waste of time and money. And in my experience, when people say that, there's really a couple of reasons behind that. First is the scenario, someone goes to an event, they talk to a couple of people, they have the lunch or the coffee, they leave, don't follow up, and nothing happens, right? And so with that, I can tell that they don't have a plan or an event plan. Or what also can happen is people attend an event, they're mortified to talk to anybody, so they'll just sit quietly and talk to nobody, leave, not follow up, And then what's going on there is that they're not using the event as an opportunity to build relationships that could lead to business growth. So if you're showing up to an event with no plan and no goal, yeah, it is indeed a waste of time, because there's nothing that's going to come out of it. Nothing will happen that way. So the purpose of this entire webinar is to really help you understand that you have to put some work into it to see some results. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So event attendance is BD work, emphasis on the word work. And it should include a plan and a process in order to maximize your ROI. So this webinar is going to specifically focus on two things. One, I'm going to give you very concrete steps that you can take to execute a proper event strategy, plan and all, that ensures that your industry events help you grow your business. And while we're talking about all that, I'm going to give you interpersonal communication skills and tips and techniques that are going to help you engage in very brief but very meaningful conversations that'll help you build relationships that could turn into strategic partnerships that eventually lead to growth. So there's a lot to cover, so I'm just going to jump right in, and then we'll take questions and comments towards the end. Okay, so let's talk about events as part of your business development strategy. So think about it. Every event you attend, if it's even if it's a conference, a luncheon, a happy hour, whatever it may be, a symposium, it is an opportunity to build or maintain relationships that could lead to strategic partnerships that eventually could lead to growth. So think of people know you, people know what you do. When they think about a need, they will reach out to you. Should you need to just get on a team for a proposal or solicitation, should you need to provide a service, when people know your name, they're going to reach out, right? So the event should be an integral part of your business development strategy, or the events. If you don't think so, or if you disagree with me, I really like us to go back and revisit the definition of business development, because as business development consultants, we often are asked, well, what is that? What do you do? And people will give you all sorts of answers. But the truth is, business development is the creation of long-term value for an organization based out of your customers, your markets, and your relationships. Relationships is the critical part here. And it's an activity that serves the purpose of developing business, and it entails tasks and processes. So in order to do the business development, you have to have those relationships and you have to have those tasks and processes in place in order to implement growth opportunities. So I'm going to talk about relationships, tasks, and process. So how exactly am I going to talk about it? I'm going to cover how you can get more business out of events in general and why. And then I'm actually going to walk you through what you need to do before an event, at the event, and after the event. In every kind of section I cover, I will give you some of those interpersonal skills, interpersonal communication skills, and those will be kind of very clearly marked. Okay. So first thing to talk about, how to get more business out of an event. Very simple. You need an event strategy. And to have an event strategy, the first no kidding step is to build it around your business development goals. Now, this is very important for us here at Trident. It's kind of a big warning. If your company doesn't know what your business development goals are, then you need to stop and you need to do that first. You will not get any value out of events. You will not get much value out of meetings or contacts if you don't really know what you're after or how you want to visualize your company growing. So BD and event goals must be taken seriously, and they must be developed the way you would develop any goal, right? They have to be SMART, and that's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So If you do think you have a situation where your company doesn't have the BD goals very clearly set, or they might be a little bit too much, not very achievable, that's where a company like Trident can come in and help you kind of define those a little bit, and then help you build an event strategy around that. But if you want to go after it yourself, if you want to do it yourself, everything has to start and revolve around this main question that I have here. What do you want to achieve in the next few years? You really have to think about that. Where do you want your company to be in a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now? And that's where you kind of go and you dive a little deeper. What kind of markets do you want to infiltrate? What contracts or contract vehicles are you going after? What service offerings do you really want to be known for? And what kind of teaming partners are you looking for? Those are the questions that you should have when really thinking about your BD goals and your BD strategy. And from those answers, you can decide and figure out what events would be of real benefit to you to help you grow your business. So, what industry related events are tied to these growth opportunities? Do you want to attend events that are focused on a specific market or a specific agency or a specific geographical area? Do you want to attend events that focus specifically on certain topics or fields like, I don't know, cybersecurity, wireless technology, whatever that might be? Or if you're a small business, do you want to attend events that are specifically for small businesses? There's so much to choose from. And there's also events where there's opportunities to meet prospective clients. You know, do you want to attend those because you want an opportunity for somebody to see your face? That really dictates your event strategy. All of that needs to be thought through before you start showing up to events kind of willy-nilly, right? So now that you've done that and you've asked asked yourself all those questions, you should have a very clear understanding of what kind of events you want to target. The next thing you need to do is have identify a realistic amount of events you can attend in a year. Sometimes companies want to go to everything, and it's great if you do, but it's not always necessary. You should really consider what would be of most benefit and how many resources you have to send to events. So people that'll go in your place or yourself, how much time do you actually have to invest in the events? I suggest do not overbook your calendar. For most small companies, medium-sized companies, attending 1 to 3 large events a year and sprinkling 1 or 2 events every other months is enough. So the good news is that with events, you can really plan your event calendar, but it can be flexible. You can skip some because you're too busy, or you have a proposal, or you can go to, the more important ones and not waste your time going to things that aren't really going to serve you well. So that's really how you should approach it. I do think there's a distinction between events you just want to attend, as in walk the halls and talk to people and say hi, or events you want to participate. So if it's an event you want to participate, say it's a symposium and you're going to submit a white paper and want to present that might be a little more resource consuming, more time consuming. You need to be very aware of that when you're planning your event calendar. So key takeaway here is knowing your BD goals really helps you know if you're at the right event, talking to the right people, and it really gives your event a sense of purpose within your BD strategy. So it's very important to think about all that. Now that you've thought about all of that, well, how do you actually do it, right? What are the steps? So these are the steps to an event strategy execution. You have your pre-work, you have your event attendance, and you have your follow-up work. Those are the 3 main things. And you have to do all 3 in order to really maximize your ROI on any event attendance. For pre-work, you have to have an event plan. You actually have to think about all that. You have to prepare for your event, and we'll go into details on what that means. And then, of course, you need to kind of show up to the event and talk to people and start attempting to build relationships. or maintain the ones you already have. And then the most important part that people often don't do is to follow up. You won't get the maximum ROI on an event if you don't follow up. So for a lot of you who might say something like, well, I'm not good at events, I'm very shy, or I'm introverted, or I get very nervous, or I never know what to say, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be a salesperson. You don't have to be the BD person. You don't actually have to be super extroverted or really enjoy this. Again, it's work. You just have to show up and you have to do it. So there's no real social engineering here. There's nothing super special about it to really build a strategic partnership from an event encounter. All you really need to do is have your plan, prepare, have some goals, and have a process and follow up. If you do those things, it's very easy to build a relationship and possibly a strategic partnership that leads to growth. So,
sorry to interrupt. I was going to say what's really important about everything that you're saying right now is that, yep, definitely true for the introverts. You're going to feel more prepared if you put this plan together. You're going to feel better if you have these talking points, but also for the extroverts who love this sort of engagement, you have to do the follow-up. Like, I know you love the handshaking and the talking to people and the learning the stories and doing all that. But if you don't also pair that with the steps after the event, like, you're going to end up with the same ROI as the introvert who doesn't want to talk to anybody. So
correct. It really is the whole process, and everyone has to do it. You follow the process, you get the results. You skip the follow-up, which Rebecca is right. The extroverts love to go talk to everybody and attend every happy hour, but then they get back to the office and they don't follow up. They don't enter their notes or contacts in CRM, and then nothing comes out of it. Then you missed the opportunity to create that growth. So introverts and extroverts alike, there's always something for everybody to learn here, right? Okay, well, let me kind of walk you through a little bit more detail on that. A lot of people really don't understand what it takes or what is considered event work. And let me tell you, showing up to a conference or a symposium or a happy hour is the easy part. The real work in events comes before and after your pre-work and your follow-up. So when I'm talking about pre-work and follow-up, this little pie chart here is a little, it's not perfect, but it should give you an idea. It's most of the work. Tends to be about 40-40 for those activities, and just being at the event, it's like 20%. Now, if you're actually a presenter or if you have a booth at an event, the pre-work gets a lot bigger because there's a lot more to do. And the follow-up is also substantial. So you need to, the numbers will shift a little bit, but when you're planning budgets, when you're planning time spent for events, you have to include the pre-work and the follow-up because it is part of it. That includes creating event plans, scorecards, registration, travel, lodging, coordinating with attendees, marketing materials, publications, conducting research, which I'll get into in detail, and then, reaching out to colleagues and say, hey, I'm going to be here. Are you going to be there? Should we meet up? All of that comes as part of the pre-work. And then after the event, you have your follow-up work, which is talking and debriefing with everyone who attended, knowing who they spoke to, what kind of prospects they identified, and who's going to follow up and say, it was great to meet you. I'd love to keep talking about X, Y, or Z. And then a few months later say, hey, I met you at this event. I'd love to, reconnect. All of that is what is the most valuable part of the event. So more on that.
And
now we know. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt again. I need a signal. The other thing that's really important, I think, to keep in mind about this sort of lot of prep work, a lot of follow-up work is when you're selecting those 2 or 3 events and you're planning out your calendar. The timing can really matter, because if you get back-to-back events, just know what that's going to do to your prep and recovery time on the back end. And it could actually drive which events you attend and prioritize, because you're absolutely right. There are peaks and valleys in the amount of investment that you've got to put in.
Absolutely true. So you really should consider events as an investment of your time and your money. But if you really want to get a return on that investment, you should pick the ones that'll give you the most value for that time. And if you book back to back, what tends to happen is you do not complete your follow-up activities. You don't close out your event properly, and you're running to the next one, and you miss the value in that contact and that relationship management. So be very aware of that. So choose wisely. Okay, so what to do before an event. This is all the pre-work. There is a lot to do in preparation for an event, even when you have, a good strategy and your event calendar for the year has been decided. Now the event is coming up. What do? You prepare and you plan, right? So the first step is to execute an event plan. This means that once you have your strategy in your calendar, an event's coming up, there's several things that an event manager or some lead in your company in charge of the events needs to do. And it's most helpful to have a place, a repository somewhere, Teams, a SharePoint site, whatever, where you can track and manage all your events and create an event folder or site for that specific event. And what should be included in there for everyone to see are all the details about the event. For example, when registration deadlines are due, et cetera, et cetera. You need to identify event coverage, who in your company is going to attend and why. And then you need to verify that they can actually show up for it. You need to make sure that you ask them, are you going to be available those days? Once you know your event coverage, you definitely need to start reviewing all the information about the event. And you need to start thinking about, who do I want to talk to while at the event? Who would I benefit from, getting to know, asking them a question? What are my questions? And that helps you create what we call target lists. Now, your target lists are booths that you're interested in, going to, panels that you might be interested in going to, and specific people that you want to meet or talk to. You can't do it all yourself, so you need to assign people some targets, right? You are going to go to this booth. I'm going to go to that one. That way you ensure that both your people don't go to the same booth and ignore the other one, right? So you got to coordinate all those efforts. You also need to prepare, review, and train your folks on the key messaging, talking points, and selling points that you want them to hit while at the event. A lot of times now, I just see people show up and I ask a couple of people in the same company, what does your company do, or what are you here for? And I get different stories. When companies are telling me, or people are telling me different versions of a story of their company, it kind of dilutes the credibility of the company. So you really want to make sure that everyone's prepared to sell the thing that you want to sell, or to pitch the thing that you want to pitch the way you want it to be pitched. So that responsibility is on the company. You also want to work with your marketing team. This is very important. All BD work is tied to your marketing work because you need to sell yourself. Government, teaming partners, whoever are going to look for you online. They're going to look for you on social media. They're going to try to figure out who you are. So the story and messaging needs to align. What I'm the BD person saying in the event needs to align with what is being said in our social media, our website, our LinkedIn, et cetera, et cetera. So that coordination is really important. And then you also need to identify any additional tasks or issues that might come up. Like, do people have business cards? Do you need to print any kind of promotional materials, et cetera? or create QR codes. And then part of the plan too is have some meetings with the attendees. Make sure you coordinate with them, make sure they understand, make sure they know, and everybody understands what the goals are here for this event. A really important component that is tied to your target lists and your attendance and knowing the exhibitor, hall, conference program, et cetera, is your research. You might have somebody that's like part of your research team or your BD team that can help you, or you can outsource that to somebody like us. But the point is you should do some research. You can use LinkedIn, you can use your contacts, emails, phones, anything you want. The event pages tend to have a lot of information about attendees. Just go in and look, prepare a little bit. Know who the event attendees are, know who the sponsors are, who the speakers are. If there's events where if there's some conferences where there's matchmaking programs or meet and greets, be sure you know what those are. You should figure out from the booth list if you have some of your customers or prospective clients there you would like to go show up at the booth. And then always a good thing is to know what the happy hours are. A lot of companies tend to host happy hours. It's a great way to know that company more and them know you. And of course, if you have teammates or if you want to have a certain teammate, this is part of your research. You need to know who in that company might be attending. You also have an opportunity to find out what topics are being addressed during this conference. So if you want to be known in the industry for being a subject matter expert in a certain field, you should know what the topic is and be ready to show up to the panels, ask some really smart questions, or talk to other companies who are there who are also experts in that field. And like I mentioned, prepare your target list. These will go in your event page. One thing about target lists that I always like to say, it's great to have a plan, but rarely do you ever get to execute it exactly, right? It's just be prepared and then be ready to kind of wing it once you get there. But at least you know some information, right? And you're not completely lost when you show up to the event and it just kind of feels a little overwhelming. So once you do all this research, these target lists kind of become your goals for the event, right? I want to show up and meet with these people, or I want to go to these booths. I want to find 2 companies that I could team with. So those really kind of motivate you to remain focused during the event and to know what to do after it. So
Alexis, I would say they also help you, if you have this great plan and you show up and then people that you want to talk to aren't there, or, if something happens and you don't get to engage with people that were on your plan, but you know what you wanted to get out of the engagement, it helps you pivot and you can still get some value out of the event because you knew what you were trying to do there in the first place. So you can adjust a little bit on the fly.
Yes, absolutely. Good point. And you do have to adjust on the fly every time. Let me tell you, it's going to happen and it's okay. But if you know you wanted to talk about, I don't know, sibbers and sitters, let's say that was your main interest. Well, the person that you really wanted to see in booth, whatever, isn't there. Okay, well, go look for another booth that has the word sibbers and sitters on it, right? So it does help you kind of adjust and pivot, but still remain some focused.
Yeah. Exactly.
So do your homework, know your targets, know your interests, know your goals. This really helps you get comfortable in the event and know and stay focused on what you really want to get out of it. Okay, more on planning and preparing. You're not the only one that needs to be prepared. Everyone in the team that's attending the event needs to be equally prepared and equally comfortable with what right? Like who is attending, what booths, what topics, et cetera, et cetera. So make sure that whoever else is attending the event is prepared with the key messaging that you want them to hit, the talking points, the selling points. If you have a specific product that you're putting out, at that moment, and that's what you want them to talk about, tell them that and make sure that they know exactly what to say. Get them comfortable with the information. This is one of those key skills that I talk about that aren't really social engineering. When humans feel comfortable with the information, it really increases their credibility. And when the person on the other side sees that, they trust you more. And that trust is what leads to a relationship, a positive relationship. So if you have an employee who shows up, you didn't tell them what you wanted them to talk about, and you don't tell them where to go or who to talk to, they're kind of just winging it. That ROI starts to go down with that. Or if they do get to talk to somebody, but they didn't hit the key messaging, then that's an opportunity loss. So get everyone prepared, get everybody comfortable. That increases your company's credibility. The way to do that is to practice. Practice, practice, practice. We do not wing it. We really always encourage people to review, study, memorize, whatever, really learn the information. And the way to do that is to say it out loud, to practice it with somebody else, to kind of do a little bit of role playing, to learn how to listen and adapt, or the way kind of the dynamic that Rebecca and I have. We're talking, and if Rebecca has a great point, she comes in and she, tag teams it, and we kind of make an improved pitch together. Always have, good at hand success stories about your company. Make sure other people have them. And the important thing about that is make sure they actually know the details. If you say, oh, well, my company won, a ton of contracts, that's not as compelling as my company has won 25 contracts. That's the difference. Know the numbers, know the details, and practice it. And then practice it again until it becomes really natural for everybody. Something I mentioned before, very important. I'll mention it again. Prepare your materials. Make sure that your materials match what your people are saying. I have seen a lot of marketing materials, pamphlets, postcards, websites that call it one thing and your team calls it something else. So what is it? Where, it just kind of looks messy. Make sure everything, slick sheets, banners, postcards, even stickers, whatever you want to call it, whatever you have as a marketing material, is telling the same story and narrative your people are telling. You definitely want to avoid, I see this a lot, those slick sheets and trifolds that have a just long list of NAICS codes. Nobody cares about that many NAICS codes. You don't need to do that. And also companies that say they do everything under the sun, that doesn't really help you either. So make sure that you are targeted, specific, and highlighting your best and strongest features. Also, pet peeve of ours is make sure your marketing materials have a contact information, and like updated contact information, a phone number that actually goes somewhere, an email to an actual person that still works there. QR codes are really helpful. Make sure those have the right information, and always kind of point them to your website, your LinkedIn, your social media, because otherwise people forget the minute they walk out of that conference or that meeting. It's true. It happens to all of us. So get all that ready. What you also need to get ready are your supporting evidence or leave behinds. In some cases, you want to have a copy of, let's say, either paper or digital, whatever you prefer, but copies of white papers, copies of CPARs, even copies of information from past performance. If you're really meeting with a potential teaming partner, and they're like, well, what can you do for me? You don't want to answer, well, we can do anything. No, you can say, I have 3 past performances with exceptional CPARs. Here's a copy if you want to take a look, or I can send you a link. This is what I would bring to the table. That's concrete. That is something that they can work with. So be sure to have that and be ready. Always, sometimes I see like these slick sheets that are like like almost like an inch margin and they're covered with NAICS codes and a ton of graphics and information, you might want to consider leaving some space for note taking when you are in a conference and somebody's reading your information. They're writing notes down. Give them space to write a lot of notes, because the more notes they write about you, the more likely they're likely to kind of call you back. So important things to keep in mind. So make sure everyone and everything is telling a cohesive and compelling story about your company. That's part of the preparation for the event. I'm going to go into a little bit of more detail here on something. It's more of an interpersonal communication skill. How to develop standardized messaging. I mentioned this before. I've heard companies or employees from the same company tell me very different things about what this company does. And that's a bit of a problem, because you have to establish your credibility and you have to show your potential clients that you really know what you're doing. And that means all your employees are ambassadors to that, and they all need to tell that story. If they're fumbling and like, well, I kind of don't know, but I think we do this and I think we do that, you have a messaging problem. And one of the things that we recommend is the moment that's happening, throw a flag in the field, and you need to bring everybody back, and you need to teach them and have them practice the messaging. And it has to be succinct. It has to get to the point. If people are guessing at how many years your company's been around, that's a problem. Everybody should be able to say 15 years quickly, X number of contracts. We do A, B, C. If everybody's like, well, we do A, but we do B, but we can also do these other things. And I know a guy that also does that. That's a problem. You want to really have a succinct message about your company and what you do and what you can offer. So prepare your team, give them the details, and then have them practice it. Ask them. Have a little bit of that role-playing scenario where they know, everybody knows the company story, your domain expertise, your strengths, your differentiators, and those success stories, right? Those past performances with those exceptional CPARs. You want to have those in the back of your mind. You need to know those. And again, have that inventory of evidence should you ever need to leave it behind, or at least show it to somebody so that people have that trust in what you're saying about yourself. You also...
Sorry, I think something else that's really important to highlight here, because we tell this to candidates too, right, who are applying for jobs. You've got to take some of the work and the brain power off of your potential client or teammate. Like, tell them what you do and tell them what you're good at, so that they don't have to guess about it or try to find a home for you or try to remember where you would fit in their landscape. If you can get them focused on what it is you're great at, the odds of you making the successful match are much higher.
Absolutely. And it really is about providing helpful and useful information. And, we all kind of tend to err on the side of modesty sometimes and not talk about ourselves a lot, but it's not about that. It really is about information that helps people make decisions about you and build that trust. I have done this 50 times, like we've supported this client for 20 years. We're not new here. So that's very important. Make it easier on them. And the other thing too that you need to be prepared for is the unexpected. There are a lot of situations where I see people get asked a question and it's like deer caught in the headlights, and they're like, don't know what to say. And they're like, well, and that there is just diminishes that credibility. Again, you have to be comfortable in order to be credible. So be prepared to even answer the hard questions. I think Rebecca and I are really good at this. We get asked something and we'll say, you know what? I don't know. And that's okay. But I know somebody who knows. Let me go get that person for you. That's the expert. And so, instead of trying to make something up and giving a half answer, better to be comfortable saying, you know what? I really don't know that. Or saying, I wasn't there for that. I do know what you're talking about, but I really don't know the details. Let me make sure I get you, Bob or Phil. and they can really talk in detail about that. So you have to practice the unexpected and the uncomfortable too. When you get comfortable with the uncomfortable, you really are ready to really talk about your company in a positive light, no matter what. In some situations, I have seen and heard government representatives or people or representatives from large businesses, talking to small businesses, and they'll call them out on something they know about this little company, right? I've had large businesses ask small companies, well, I heard you blew your ceiling on this other contract. What was that about? Or I know that you have a lot of turnover. There can be some challenges, and you need to be able to answer those questions instead of being very surprised and nervous. Lean into it. Be honest. Tell them what happened. Tell them how you resolved it. Tell them how you're resolving it. Or tell them, I'm actually struggling with this. I would really love some help with that. Like, can you as a large business mentor me or let me know what I could do to improve something? Have a little more control of the conversation and how it is being dealt with. Don't be caught and get nervous and then lose that credibility. So
it's going to end the conversation. Like you're going to, it's definitely one of those conversation killers where, the credibility goes down. They're like, okay, well, now it's awkward. Meeting you, goodbye, right?
Bye. And it feels awkward, right? You're trying to avoid that sense of awkwardness. But if you learn how to, or if you know, and you teach your other attendees how to deal with those things, it becomes less awkward. And, if whatever's happening, the trick is to really know and be comfortable with when and how you can pivot, right? You don't want to create angst. You don't want to minimize your credibility. Just practice it. It really comes down to that, practicing even the tough questions. That's one of the things that as a orals coach, presentation coach, I spend a lot of time doing. I do make sure that people are prepared for the tough and hard questions, because even if just by experiencing that sense of angst and anxiety and nerve happens there, at least it's a little less intense than when it happens live. So that's important. So practice, practice, practice. We can't say that enough. Know the right information, be comfortable with it, and then that will increase your credibility. Credibility leads to trust, and trust leads to partnership. So that's the connection there, even though I couldn't say it right.
Credibility, yes. And just keeping us honest here with our presentation, we got about 15 minutes left. So I missed my 30-minute warning, but 15 minutes is where we're at, Alexis.
Thank you. So I'm going to just go really quickly here. Okay. This kind of touches on the same thing. When you are an event, there are two things you really need to do. You're going to need to talk, and you're going to need to listen. For talking, it's everything that I've been saying. Prepare by doing your homework, promote your company's value with targeted marketing and messaging, build genuine relationships. So by that, I mean, talk to people in a very genuine way. If you see that there's actual interest and alignment, that means that what they're looking for matches what you need, and vice versa. And there's that like positive energy and that vibe going on, then that can lead to a genuine relationship. You should steward that. And then always, of course, when talking or in an event, you got to do the basics, be polite, respectful, you got to be on time, and you got to like dress to impress and all of that. So keep those things in mind for events, because this is very simplistic, but true. Good first impressions really do lead to long-term relationships. All right. Oops, sorry. What to do at the event. Like I said, this is the easy part. It's very straightforward. When you are at the event, you've done all your pre-work, your research, your prep, your messaging, you just need to show up that day. And you should bring your experts and your company leadership if you really want to have certain conversations with certain people. Be smart enough to know and align who would be best to talk to who, and make sure those people are there. Bring helpers and note takers. This is very important. You can't be fumbling with the postcards or handing out scanning the badges at the booth if you really want to have important strategic conversations. So bring helpers, and note takers are important. Be sure that you're posting on social media that you're at the event or that you figured something out, whatever. That really helps because it increases your credibility. Coming back to the note takers, the most important thing about an event is to take great notes. Who are you meeting? Sometimes you take a business card and it's sure it has their name, their company, and their phone number, but what did you actually talk about? If you don't write it down in 2 days, you'll completely have forgotten. So we encourage to bring a little notebook. Yes, I'm actually talking about pen and paper. I'm serious. And just say, I met Bob from Trident. Excellent recommendation for proposal support. I really want to follow up because I have a really hard proposal coming up in June, like something like that. And then you go back and you revisit your notes. So who did you meet? Who would you like to follow up with? It's always helpful to make it memorable. So if you connected on the fact that you both like collecting conference swag, like that was the connection, like the more person-to-person connection. That's always good. Sometimes you talk about your kids or something interesting that you both encountered, write those notes down. Those are important. If possible at the event, some situations will present themselves where you can schedule a follow-up then and there. Be sure to do that. Literally say, I'm going to send you a meeting invite for, 3 days from now. Great. And then you walk away and then stop and send that meeting invite then and there. Or at least remind yourself to do it when you get back to the office. But those are very important to do when possible. If it's not presenting itself, don't pressure that. Let it be a little more natural, but in some situations that will happen. Take that opportunity. Do not let it pass. And then, of course, walk around, go talk to people, and then make sure you're talking to people that you might not know. I'll get into more detail, but if you don't have kind of a way in, ask people to introduce you or go introduce yourself. Just make sure you're making at least the effort to talk to as many people as you can. So, and very importantly, put the phone down. There's nothing that says, I don't want to talk to you more than people on their phone. Especially if you have a booth, it should literally be illegal for you to be on your phone when you're sitting in the booth. Preferably, you want to be standing outside of the booth, smiling and saying hello to people, than looking at your phone. Only when necessary, but I'm willing to bet 90% of the time it is not necessary. All right. For listening, this is very important. Remember, I said interpersonal skills are about talking and listening. Listening is very important. You really need that in order to build the genuine relationship. It's listen and identify the other person's wants, needs, and interests. Those are the tacit and explicit wants and needs. Anytime you're talking to anybody, even though you do have an interest or a goal in mind, it's really not about you. The conversation should always be about them. You need to kind of leave your company-centric biases at the door and say, like, well, I'm Trident and I'm entitled, I'm here to get more work. Like, let's talk about that. That really is kind of off-putting to some people. But what is never off-putting is, hi, my name's Alexis. What do you do? Tell me about your company and what part are you involved? Oh my God, that's great. I work in BD support. We've done this or that. Have you ever thought of this? And eventually you get to talk to them about yourself, but you start by making it about them first. If you're a good listener, you're actually going to find the tacit or unspoken needs in the conversation. You can be like, it sounds like you really need this. I do this. We could help each other out. That's very important. So find something that you have in common, find a bond or commonality, and always say, what about you? What do you need? How can I help? That is the most important way to start a relationship. And of course, when you're asking questions, if you really want them to understand that they're being heard, is repeat it back to them. Say, I'm hearing you say this. Is that right? and then they feel heard. So that is active, engaged, and empathetic listening. So again, make it about them. And then bonus for the introverts out there, when you are asking them, what do you want? What do you need? They're the ones talking. So you don't, the more they talk, the less you have to. So that's a bonus for everybody. Quickly here, I'll go through what to do after the event. Pretty straightforward. There's not much. There's two things. One, you have to have or hold an internal debrief after the event, preferably within 48 hours of the event being over. You need to meet with everybody who attended the event. You need to compare notes. You need to know who identified a likely prospect. You need to assign who's going to attend or call those people. And then you got to make sure people enter those notes and that information either to the event plan page you have, or your CRM, whatever it may be. The value of the relationship is in that information. Do not pass it up or forget about it within 5 days, because you will. And you should score your event. So we talked about a scorecard. Were your goals met? Did it lead to anything? What went well? What needs work? What would you do differently? And how many likely prospects did you identify? Like alignment. Did you have a lot of conversations that seemed promising? If you had none, then that event might not serve you next year. If you had a lot, then you definitely want to go back. And then, of course, actually have your follow-up campaign. It should be considered a campaign. Rebecca and I are going to spend the next day emailing and texting or posting for all of the people we met and make sure that information's in CRM. It has to be done. Otherwise, you really lose the value. So these steps, like I have here in this call out, these are the most important steps, and they're the ones that are often ignored or overlooked because people now have to go back to work and they put the event behind them and they lose the most valuable part that would really give them that ROI, which is the follow-up. So that is most of the work. Final takeaways, everything in summary. We got 5 takeaways for you. So you have to have a strategy. Based on your BD strategy and goals. If you don't have that, you need to stop and focus on that before you do anything else. You have to do your homework. You have to plan. You have to prepare. You have to practice your pitch. Everybody needs to be comfortable with what they're saying, and they have to say it succinctly, because in events, you might only have 5 to 10 minutes of somebody's time. You don't have forever. The other takeaway is make a positive first impression by talking succinctly and listening and making sure you understand what the other person's needs are. And then, of course, last but not least, build up momentum or keep it going by doing the follow-up. You don't do the follow-up, everything else is probably going to go down the wayside. So that's my entire presentation, and I'd like to tell you a couple of ways how Trident can help. So this is your company, these are your events, yes, but sometimes you don't have people to come help you do a few things. We can come in and help. So specifically for events, if you realize you don't have a BD strategy or goals and you need help with that, we could definitely help you with that. And if you haven't really ever had an event strategy or an event plan, we can kind of help you and guide you, consult you on how to do that so that you're set up to do it the right way every time from then on. Research. A lot of people don't have time to do the research, so you can bring in one of our researchers and analysts to just help you do the work and then just tell you, kind of spoon feed you what they found, and you can make some educated or decisions based on that knowledge. And then last but not least, to me, this one's one of the most important ones, is the branding and messaging consultation. You have a problem if your company really doesn't know how to sell itself. And so if you don't have the right messaging or the right brand, we can come help you establish that pretty quickly and get you going so that that event is a success, but you can apply that to all your branding and messaging for all your website campaigns, social media, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're interested in any of those consultations or support, we definitely offer a 30-minute consultation to talk about it. Feel free to reach out to me. I'll give you my contact info. And just for everyone's knowledge, all those who attend are going to get my event checklist so that if you start doing your events, it'll help guide you on how to do it with a very specific process. So that's all I got. I did it under an hour, but not a lot of time for Q&A. But I'll leave my contact info here for you in case you have any other questions. I'm happy to answer. Rebecca, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Alexis. And I think just in the interest of time, so obviously if anybody in the audience has questions, you can pop those in the chat and we'll address those. Alexis, what I'd love to do with the few remaining minutes is address a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and that is, how do you end a conversation when you're at one of these industry days and you're done? It's time for things to be over. Do you have any tips for extracting yourself from a conversation, whether it's going well or not?
Yes, I do. Exiting conversations in conferences is like exiting a bad date. You want to be very polite. There's two ways to go about it. If it's going well, you don't want to stay there forever, because it's actually, the person on the other end is there to do other things. So the moment that you have that alignment there that I mentioned, you should definitely say, this is a great conversation. I'd love to keep talking to you. Would you be able to meet with me, some of next week or something like that? Like, make a plan to follow up and be able to really do a deep dive on what you were talking about. Of course, you have to be polite about it and take the info. If, like I said, if you can schedule it then and there, do it. If not, do it when you get back to your office. If the meeting is not going well, you will know that very quickly, because you're not sensing that alignment, right? Like, what they do doesn't really align to what you do, etc., or they're not interested, or they don't see what you're trying to say. That's fine. Don't waste their time either. You can just say, well, this was really interesting. I'm really glad I got to meet you. Thank you so much. And you can say something like, I hope we have a great rest of the week and the conference goes well for you. I'll see you around. And that's it. Keep it short, because they're busy, you're busy, and you have other targets, and so do they. So that's the two ways I would go about it.
Awesome. Thank you, Alexis. And Cheryl, thank you. We would love a shout out on your your live audio event. And thank you also for letting us know about the email registration issue. We're addressing that with our vendors right now. And I don't have the live links handy, but we will make sure that those are included with the free checklist that we're sending out. And for future webinars, we'll definitely take that on board as a best practice, because that is a fantastic idea. Because you can't click on your screen there and get to Alexis if you have those wonderful follow-up questions. So all great ideas. And you can look for that email, by the way, on Friday. So we're gonna make some updates, give you a little recap, and then you'll be able to watch this recording or share it with your friends in perpetuity, and just revisit all of Alexis's great tips, because she had a lot of great content on those slides. So if you want to come back and check this out, it'll be in your inbox on Friday. All right. Any other questions from the audience before we wrap up here? We got 1 minute to spare, Alexis. You did great. Yes. Keeping everybody on time here.
Well, I know that was a lot. If there's no other questions, feel free to reach out to me. I am on LinkedIn. Feel free to find me there, Alexis Romero, or email. I'm always available there too. So always happy to talk about events, because I really enjoy them, as Rebecca knows.
You can tell, yes.
Yeah.
Expert swag collector here too. Okay, thanks everybody. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording and close out. We hope to see you back for another webinar soon. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.